Persona Super Live 2019 has finally come and gone. After 4 months of build, we now know the identities of Persona 5R and 5S, and on what platforms they will be available. Persona 5R is of course Persona 5 Royal. The title was revealed in March, and Wednesday confirmed what many suspected. P5R is an expanded version of Persona 5 similar to what Persona 4 Golden was to P4, but also so much more. The game features additional scenarios, a new Phantom Thief, another new confidant, and several months added to the scenario. The game is also exclusive to PlayStation 4 and is the first Atlus title to include PS4 Pro support. And on Thursday, Persona 5 Scramble, the Phantom Strikers was announced for PS4 and, wait for it, Nintendo Switch. Yes, Persona 5 is coming to the Switch, in the form of a Koei Tecmo developed Musou game, just like the rumors said it would. Overall, I'm pretty happy with the reveal of P5R. If there were a word to describe how it comes off in the trailer, I would choose ambitious. When it became clear that P5 would be getting an expanded version, I really wasn't expecting too much. In line with what Persona 4 Golden is, I expected an Eon Confidant, one new dungeon, some weeks added to the game, and a few additional scenes peppered in here and there. I didn't expect 2 new characters at least, and I didn't think one of them would be playable. I didn't expect the numerous new features and mechanics there seemed to be, and least of all, I sure as heck didn't expect there to be PS4 Pro support. I know I'm in the minority here, but as a Pro owner, Atlus's negligence of it up until now has been pretty annoying. Not even Catherine Fullbody has PS4 Pro support, and that just came out in Japan this past February. What shouldn't be overlooked is just how impressive this game seems to be for a studio that was essentially split in half less than 3 years ago. After development of P5 wrapped up, several senior staff, including the former director Katsura Hashino, left P Studio to form a new studio within Atlus, Studio Zero. Since then, the two studios had been largely running at half capacity while recruiting new hires. P Studio put out P3 and P5 Dancing along with Persona Q2 to hold themselves over, and likewise Studio Zero worked on Catherine Fullbody to stay afloat while still planning the far too early announced Project Re-Fantasy. So when P5R was announced in December, that led to my reserved expectations. Atlus has put out a lot of re-releases this decade, but none quite to the level of reimagining that this game seems to have. This may be a bit premature to say, but this feels like it could be a statement game from P Studio, a changing of the guard if you will. With the torch having been passed to other veteran talent within P Studio and newer talent coming in, I've been wondering what the future of the series would look like. And while this isn't quite a new numbered entry, this is the first mainline game from the quote-unquote new P Studio. After a decade of the series being in the hands of Hashino, it was time for a change. And if this is the kind of ambition we can come to expect from P Studio moving forward, then I think this series is in good hands. As for Persona 5 Scramble, I'm not too thrilled about it, but will likely give it a look. Actually, despite all the noise about how P5S was going to be a Switch port of P5, I really wasn't surprised that it was a Musou game. A while back, Atlus held one of their infamous fan surveys, and one of the things on it was a potential Persona 5 action game. Whether that meant Musou or character action or something else entirely no one knew, but it coming to fruition and being real? Honestly, after living through an era of getting 3 music rhythm games, nothing surprises me anymore. I can't say I'm the biggest fan of these kinds of games, but I do like Persona 5 a lot. If I can find enjoyment in Persona 4 Dancing All Night, I can probably get down with this too. As long as the PS4 version performs well and isn't a frame rate killer. Finally, a version of Persona 5 that should run at 60 frames per second. But in all seriousness, I'd like to take the time to address the months of rumors of Persona 5 being ported to the Nintendo Switch. This started back in December ahead of P5R's teaser announcement, and seemed to be fueled more by speculation due to Joker's inclusion in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate than anything else. The only piece of somewhat credible evidence to support it was a listing for Persona 5 on Switch that was found in Best Buy's database, but there's no way of knowing why that was there, whether it was possibly caused by the rampant rumors to begin with. There's also a decent chance that listing was a placeholder for Persona 5 Scramble all along. I know it was accompanied by other suspicious listings for Link to the Past and the Metroid Prime trilogy, but I suppose you'll just have to wait until E3 to see if there was anything to the leak at all. I think we should all keep in mind that we're in an era where retailers leaking games happens quite often, but also that they aren't always legitimate or may not tell the whole story of what the game really is. As for the people and sites that fueled the fire of these rumors, I have my own complicated feelings on the matter. I think there's a lack of accountability and credibility regarding the leaks that always seem to spring up whenever it's known a new Persona title or titles are going to be announced. I've never been one to buy into them to begin with, because I found the logic of anonymous Westerners having the skinny on a reclusive Japanese company's inner workings to be shaky at best. And while I don't appreciate spreading around unverified information to begin with, or the motives that may be behind doing so, what I really take issue with is what it does to the public and the people that choose to believe those rumors. The past 24 hours have been pretty hostile. And why? Because a lot of people worked themselves into a frenzy assuming it was a foregone conclusion. Had it not been for a handful of people spreading the rumor as if they had a scoop, and in turn some less than credible sites echoing that, would things have gotten to this point? I don't know. It's up to you to decide who to trust and what to believe. But as Benjamin Franklin said, believe nothing of what you hear, and only half of what you see. And Benjamin Franklin writes lyrics for Persona songs, so you know it's good advice. Moving on. I've also been seeing a lot of complaining about P5R being a complete separate release that Atlus is obviously charging full price for. I won't lie, I had those same concerns after last month, thinking that Royal would be a fairly conservative remastering of the game. After seeing it up close, I changed my tune. I think when you look closely at just how much of the game has been changed, you get a better sense of why adding Royal onto vanilla P5 simply wouldn't work. There are noticeable differences in the game as early as the first palace, and the new party member seems to be part of the storyline almost immediately. It wouldn't be feasible for players to pick up halfway through P5R where they left off in P5 Vanilla, so starting a new playthrough is mandatory. But why sell that new campaign as a separate game and not as an expansion to P5? I think it again comes down to feasibility, but this time on Atlus's behalf. Looking at what's been shown, I've little doubt that real money is going into P5R. There's a lot of production value here to justify it being a paid experience. Whether or not that justifies it being a full-price game, I think that's for you to decide. The standard edition of the game will be 8,800 yen in Japan, meaning it should be a full $60 here in the States. Not all that surprising when you consider vanilla P5 has quite literally hit bargain bin pricing, and is now part of the PlayStation Hits $20 lineup. So an extra $40 gets you the remade version of the game with additional content and 4K support, which will be a lot more important when the PS5 or whatever the next gen PlayStation is called comes out next year. In other words, whether you plan to play it on the PS4 Pro or the next gen PlayStation in the next couple of years, you'll be getting a true remaster of the game from a graphical perspective at the very least. To be fair, I do think there's a larger conversation that can be had in regards to Atlus's practice of constantly making spin-offs and re-releases versus focusing on mainline entries in their franchises. If you're familiar with me, you know my favorite developer is Nihon Falcom, and one of the best things about liking Falcom's games is expecting one new game a year. That's been the trend this entire decade. Every September, a new Falcom RPG out in Japan. Granted, Falcom is a smaller independent company and is only able to produce games at the rate they do thanks to the heaviest asset reuse imaginable. But their games are generally always pretty fun and well written, so their fans tend to stay loyal. Atlus, on the other hand, has taken to the approach of hyping up one new game over a long period of time, like Persona 5, and then once the development cycle of that game is wrapped up, use its popularity to milk it to the highest degree possible. Make spin-offs, crossovers, collaborations, and even a re-release to get the most you can out of the property, rather than using the assets and framework you made to quickly develop another game a lot like it. Atlus used to do that during the PS2 era. That was the case not only with Persona 3 and 4, but also the two digital Devil Saga games and SMT3 Nocturne. What caused them to get away from that? Who's to say? Perhaps it's just them minimalizing cost and maximizing profit. Do keep in mind that Atlus has also gone through some extenuating circumstances this decade. They had to learn how to make HD games in the first place with Catherine. And then Persona 5's development was affected by Atlus's former parent company, Index, going under in the wake of Scandal and being sold to Sega Sammy. Right when things were seeming to get back to normalcy for Atlus and they were under Sega's wing, they went and split P-Studio in half. Now, 3 years later, it looks like they're finally back at full strength and putting out P5R. Does that mean they'll go full steam ahead toward Persona 6 after this year? Possibly, but I'm not going to get my hopes up for it. Gen 9 is almost upon us, and my only hope is just that it doesn't take 8 years for another numbered entry again. So all in all, I would say the state of Persona is pretty solid right now if you look past people getting upset over something that was never promised to them. In any case, I came out of this Persona Super Live a lot more excited about the new projects than I was for the projects announced at 2017's concert. As for what I'm going to do, I'm undecided. 2020 is a long ways away from me. I can only hope I'm doing what I'm doing right now in a year. If I am, then Persona 5 Royal is a safe bet to get a lot of content on this channel. One thing I won't be doing, however, is writing any sort of max social link guide for P5R. Some of you may know I actually did that for Vanilla P5, and it's up on GameFAQs, though I almost never talk about it anymore. Simply put, it's too much work, and I'm too old to work for free anymore. That said, I recently learned that old guide was actually referred to a lot in the making of an upcoming episode of The Completionist on Persona 5. If you're not familiar with Gerard's work, I highly recommend it. He's a great dude and works harder than anyone else out there, in my opinion. So to hear that something I did was useful to the show in any way, and then to get the chance to message with him personally about Persona 5 and help out, it was pretty freaking cool and a big honor, I'm not gonna lie. I don't know when the episode is due out though. It could be as early as the day after this video goes up or much further down the line. What I do know is Gerard put some heavy completionist criteria onto the video outside of just earning the Platinum Trophy. He really went all out on the game, so I can't wait to see what the episode will end up being. Anyway, that's all for now. I've got to get back to work on all the other things I'm supposed to be doing for the channel. If you got something to add about the Persona announcements, you can say it down in the comments or shout at me on Twitter. Either way, I'll see you guys in the next one.